but now stop talking and welcome Alette Vonk, who has years of experience in intercultural management. So Alette, kindly introduce yourself and then you can start with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you for the kind introduction of both GNBCC and myself. Indeed, my name is Alette Vonk, and I actually have a slide to introduce myself further. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm part of the GNBCC for quite some years now. But let me start my presentation, and we will come to the slide where I can introduce myself a bit further as well. So let me put it on presentation mode. There you go. Okay. Like I said, I'm very happy to be here. And indeed, like Tracy said, we're going to talk about building trust across cultures. And this is my name, as you see, Alette Vonk. Here you see it again. And I am born and raised in the Netherlands, and I'm living in the Netherlands at this moment as well. So I'm calling in from the Netherlands. I have my master's degree in development sociology on the University of Leiden, which is quite some time ago that I did my studies. I lived and worked in the US for 1 year, and I lived in West Africa for 10 years. So I was in Cameroon, that was a shorter period, and then in Benin, in the north of Benin, and I lived in Ghana, especially in Volta region, actually, for 5 years. So the total Cameroon, Benin, and Ghana was 10 years. I worked for SMV, the Dutch Development Organization, at the time. I have my own company since 2010, which is called De Vonk. And Vonk meaning spark, by the way, in Dutch. And within my company, I'm a trainer, I'm a coach, I'm an advisor to all kinds of client organizations on intercultural management, intercultural communication, and those client organizations that can be big companies, multinationals, but it can also be development organizations and smaller organizations as well. And here in the Netherlands, I also give training, for instance, in the health sector, where also at sometimes, you know, they have to cross-cultural differences between the Dutch and all kinds of migrants that live in the Netherlands. And I'm also a lecturer. That's 1 day a week at the University of Leiden, also in the same topic, intercultural management. So that is a little bit about me. Now, what are we going to do? I have these 5 parts for you. We are going to start with what is culture? What are we talking about when we talk of culture, and where does it come from? How does it form? How does the individual then get his or her culture? We'll talk about trust, as of course is also the main theme of this webinar. And trust is built in several ways. And the other topics also, you know, have a big influence on trust. So all of it actually also comes together. So, but let's separate a little bit about communication and about the motivation of people and the assertiveness of people. Those are a bit linked. And then in the end, we have enough time, hopefully, for questions and wrap up. So indeed, like Tracy said, please put your questions in the chat. Some questions were also sent already. So we do have, you know, separate time to answer those. So that is more or less the plan. So what is culture? I'm not sure if I can see the chat, actually. I don't see it. And I don't know how to get it. But just for yourself, maybe think of one or two words. What is culture to you? What words come up when you think of culture? Think of norms or rules or habits or tradition or religion, maybe. All kinds of aspects of culture. And actually, I mean, it's a very complex, big thing with all kinds of different parts in it. Now, of course, there's a lot of definitions of culture. There's hundreds, and usually I use the one of Professor Hofstede, and that is this one, and it has actually two parts. So let's, look at those two parts separately. Culture is the collective mental programming which distinguishes the members of one group from another. Now, let's look at the first part first. Programming is not a very nice word for people because actually we are not computers, right? But still, it is caused by the lack of a better word that still Hofstede has chosen to use it, because when we grow up as children, you see the little boy sitting there already. It's a small movie coming up, but when children, we all grow up as children, and actually what we do is we really look at our parents' behavior. We model them, we get feedback from them. They tell us this is good and this is bad, and clean and this is dirty, all those things that we learn to grow up and our way. And they say, scientists say, some say 7 years, some at a certain age, we are the basic framework is more or less, installed into us. And of course, at a later age, we can change, we can stretch. Still, for instance, when I was living in Ghana, I realized I can never become Ghanaian, not only by just my physical appearance, but also, the way I've been brought up. It
I think
That's right. Yeah. Okay, good. So, a small little movie just to show you how children learn indeed. Then I have another example for you. And just watch your screen. And then the question is, what did you read? What was the sentence that you saw? Maybe I put it on there again, just quickly. Now, maybe just say it out loud for yourself. What did you read? Many of you will probably now say Paris in the dark, right? Paris in the dark. That's what you may have seen. In fact, it's not all the way true, because what you've seen is Paris in the dark. There's a double the in there, but consciously, your brain actually unconsciously takes the double the out, because your brain knows very well, has learned that there's no double the in a sentence. So without you even being aware, you perceive something, you see something else than what is actually there. And that is also how culture works. You have learned to look at the world in a certain way. And, your brain already is wired, while growing up, is being programmed. And it just takes the extra the out without you, doing that. So that's how it works. So we don't see things as they are. We actually see things as we are. And then indeed, maybe somebody from Argentina looks at the same situation, somebody from Russia looks at the same situation, but they actually see different things, or at least they interpret different things. But it is so unconscious that they actually really are sure that that's what they see. So that's how culture works. A large part of it is actually has become very unconscious, which is, of course, very good because we cannot be born open like a baby every day. It's very good that, we are programmed so we can actually function in the world. And we know that by a certain we feel that, oh, wait a minute, this may be a dangerous situation, so we retrieve from it. Or this may be, a very good situation, and we go into it. So we have learned how to walk the face of the earth, let's say, and how to interact with people, how to be professional, or how to be a loving parent, or all those things. We've learned it. So then, if that is the collective mental programming, it's collective, because that is also part of the second part of this definition. Culture distinguishes the members of one group from another. And if we look at this image, on the bottom of the pyramid, we are all human beings. That's the universal level. We have so many things in common as human beings. You can say that is biology or the natural part. Then the top of the pyramid, we are all unique. There's no one like you. Each individual is a unique individual. Then what actually is culture is that middle level. That's the collective level. We seem to have certain things more or less in common with a group. And that group can be the village that you come from, the city that you come from. It can be the football club. It can be any group. Or it can be an organization where you are working. So every group of people, more or less, has a culture. And, they behave a certain way, they greet each other a certain way, they think that this is good behavior, that is bad behavior. And it is that middle part of this pyramid what we are going to focus on. So that group phenomenon of culture. And then, culture distinguishes one group from another. Now, the fact that culture is a group phenomenon, it makes it a bit dangerous to talk about. Because if I have to say something about culture, that means I have to generalize. If I say something about people from Mali or people from Congo or people from Germany, of course, not all people from Mali or from Congo or from Germany are the same within their group. But if I want to say something about culture, it means I have to generalize because it's a group phenomenon. So the challenge is that before you know it, you start a very dangerous game of stereotyping. And if the stereotyping goes too far, you even get into the field of discrimination. So you have to be actually it's a sensitive topic, right? So when we talk of culture, actually, we're only talking about averages. Like the German is more or less a little bit like this, and the Dutch is a little bit like that, and the Ghanaian is a little bit like this. But that doesn't mean that all Ghanaians are like that, or that all the Dutch are like that. So after today, I will, I will walk that slippery line of saying something about whole big groups of people. Otherwise, I cannot say anything about culture. But after this session, my question to you is put it in the back of your mind and be open again for the individual in front of you. You by knowing something about culture, it may make it easier to interpret another person's behavior, or to do some expectation management. And then you expect this person to communicate like this or like that, but it doesn't need to be true, because we see all kinds of behavior in every group. It's just that the averages do change and are different. And some people, they say, okay, I won't talk about culture. I will only see every individual the way he or she is. That is possible, but then you do miss a layer of reality, because you only have to cross a border and already you notice there's something different here. So culture does exist, and it's good to have an idea about it and to do a bit of expectation management when you deal with people from different cultures. But like I said, remain open for the individual, because the individual may be different in front of you. And we say, okay, so use cultural knowledge for understanding and for finding new strategies. If, for instance, you would have to negotiate with somebody from Spain, it's good to know something about how the average Spanish person negotiates. That will help you. So you can find, a strategy for it. And then we also say use it as a mirror to see, yes, indeed, I've learned from my parents or maybe my surroundings as a child that this and this is very important. Huh? Maybe so you can use it as a mirror, or if you come across something which is quite irritating, actually, and you feel you get angry because somebody behaves in a way that you don't like it, maybe you can use culture as a mirror and think, I now feel it in my stomach. I now get a bit irritated because this and this value of mine is being trampled upon, is being walked upon, is. So then you can learn something about yourself, about, yes, indeed, I do have this value. I think that this and this is very important. So it's a mirror, it's a vocabulary as well. Once you know the words, how to talk about culture, neutral terms, then it makes it easier to have the conversation about it. And finally, it's like a pair of glasses. You can, put on the glasses and get an idea, strategize, for instance. But you can, put the glasses down as well. It's not the reality. There's many realities out there, but it does help you to put on those glasses if you have to prepare for something, or if you have a multicultural team or a friend who's from another culture, put on those glasses every once in a while, some of the differences that I will tell you about. And you may interpret the world a bit differently, or you may interpret the behavior of the other person a bit differently. So but it's good to be aware that this group phenomenon makes it a dangerous place to be. Now, culture is frequently portrayed as an onion with several layers. The outer layer, which is called the artifacts, it is actually everything that we can observe with our senses. So it looks differently when you cross a border and immediately you see maybe the architecture is different. So you can see things. You also hear with your ears that the music is different. You taste with your tongue and with your smell that the food is different. Now, this is what we call the outer layer of culture, and it can change quite quickly at times. Now, if you go one layer more to the core, it's the norms, it is the rules, it is how do we do things around here. How do we greet each other? Do we pick up a phone to talk, or do we chat over WhatsApp, for instance? What are the norms, the little rules? If you ask people from a culture, why do you do this? They will be able to explain it. And they will say, well, we do it because it's handy, or we do it because of this, or whatever. So people are able to explain their norms usually. Now, if you go to the core of the onion, it's what we call the basic values. And those are the parts that are very unconscious. We've learned it as children, the basis of the culture, the basic differences as well across the world. But even if you ask people about it, it will be hard for them to explain. It's just good to do it this way. It's how we should do it. But to really understand the logic behind it, it has become so ingrained in people that it will be even hard for them to explain. Now, what we will focus on today is the basic values, the three things I will tell you about is really in the core of the onion. So it has become quite unconscious, but we're trying to get it above the waterline today. This is the late Professor Hofstede. He's one of the scientists that has done a lot of research on culture. He has passed away a few years ago. And there's a few other scientists as well. And I will also quote from then. But Professor Hofstede, his model with 6 main dimensions, and we can't do 6 in 1.5 hours. But it's very famous. It's huge all over the world, and even though other models have also emerged, it seems mostly used still. Although it is a bit older already, still every time again people return to the Hofstede model because it seems to have been one of the best models that really explains behavior of people. Now, what he did is those 6 basic differences between cultures. He actually it is not. He didn't think about it behind his desk. Let's say it's really people from all kinds of countries all over the world, almost all countries. They filled in all kinds of questionnaires, and then he just, looked at the averages in the answers from the different countries. For instance, what you see here is on the cultural dimension, so the cultural difference between individualism on one side and collectivism on the other side. That's one of the basic differences. You see here on the left is the scores from the people from Nigeria, that light brown. Then in the middle, the blue is from India, and the right, the orange kind of color, is from Sweden. So you can see that, the averages becomes then different. In Nigeria, you see the line coming down. So Nigeria, on a scale from 0 to 100, gets a score, average score of 30. But at the same time, of course, you see there's many people around that 30. Not all people in Nigeria are scoring 30 on this basic differences. So you see, there's all kinds of people on both sides, but it is just an average. If you go to the right, to the orange one, you do see that the average in Sweden is different. And on a scale from 0 to 100, it gets a score of 71. Now, and again, there's all kinds of people. There's even quite some overlap between people from Nigeria and people from Sweden. But still, very frequently, when you interact, somebody from Sweden, somebody from Nigeria, when they talk together, they may feel that difference at moments. Some moments they don't feel it at all, and other moments they will be able to feel it. So this is how Hofstede was able to map out differences and cultural differences between different nations. Now, culture is something, like I said, it's a group phenomenon. So it's one group and another group. And that group can also be, like I said, the football club or an organization. One organization has a different organizational culture than another organization. But Hofstede has defined the group by nation, and Nigeria versus Sweden in this case. So he has put the cut between one group and another group. He has followed the national boundaries, which is challenging as well. It has turned out, and he has done separate research also on, for instance, several groups within one nation. And it's turned out generally in the world, the national boundaries is quite a good cut for culture. But of course, and especially in Africa, where some of the boundaries were not, or many of the boundaries were not made by African people themselves, but by Europeans, as we all know. So then it becomes a bit more challenging to interpret it, because there may be internal differences, more internal differences than in other places of the world. That is something to keep in mind. And you even see on this image also, Nigeria is a bit more spread out than Sweden is. So sometimes it spreads out more. India is very diverse as well. It's a huge country, of course, and you see it all spread out all the way. So those are all the things we have to keep in mind when we talk about culture and when we, meet people from other cultures. Still, if you know those basic differences, the basic values and the differences between them in the core of the onion, you'll be able to see it, and you'll be able to interpret it, maybe sometimes with just a neighboring people within your own country, and sometimes with the neighboring people, across the border. But if you know it, you will know the shorelines. You will know that, yes, this is a bit that way, this is a bit that way. And you cannot build the bridge if you do not know the shorelines. So in the next part of this webinar, I will give you those three differences just to show you the shorelines. And of course, there's all kinds of nuances, and there's all kinds of little differences. But if you know the shoreline, then at least you know more or less. You will be able to recognize it. So if there's a dilemma, just imagine you're going to an appointment. It's a very important appointment. You really want to be in time and get there. But on the way, you meet somebody who is, maybe your former boss or your future boss, or maybe a very important uncle of the family. And, you need to greet the person at least. And then the person starts a whole story talking to you. And you're getting a bit anxious because you want to be in time for your appointment. So please follow your gut feeling. What do you do? Two options. One, do you interrupt the story? And do you say, sorry, I'm really sorry. I'd love to listen to your story, but I really have to go now because I have an important appointment. Is that what you do? Or do you indirectly try to communicate? Maybe you look at your watch, or you become a bit go up and down from one feet to the other. Do you show indirectly with your body language that actually you need to go? Which one do you do? And both are good. Both are, and in one culture, more people do the interruption, and in other cultures, this is not done. So it all depends. The answer depends on, okay, what is an appointment? Is it something you need to be in time, or is it okay to be a bit later than that? How do you deal with time? How have you learned to deal with time? How do you deal with trust? What about the relationship with this person, or maybe also with the person you need to go to the appointment? What is your idea about honesty, about harmony, about respect as well? And all those words, all those different aspects, appointment, honesty, trust, respect, they have a bit of a different meaning in different cultures. So there's two ways of really building trust. One is relationship-based, and the other is task-based. Now, in the relationship-based cultures, people trust each other based on personal contact, knowing each other. In the task-based cultures, people trust each other based on knowledge and capacity. And both are good, both are valid. And in reality, of course, it's always a combination. But like I said, I'm just giving you the shorelines here. On the relationship-based side, we have good contact, so I trust you. On the other side, you deliver on your task, so I trust you. So on the left side, connecting to people, knowing their personal situation, being interested in the whole person, in not just what they do for their job, but also who are the children, how is your mom doing? Those things are very important. On the other side, what is very important is follow up on agreements, delivering the products or the documents in time. Those are very important. And then if you do those things, you build trust. On the left side, usually it can take a while before there's trust. It can take a bit longer. And on the task-based side, trust can come quite quickly. And then agreements on the relationship side are often verbal. You have my word, so you trust that I will be doing it. And on the task-based side, agreements are often written. Can we sign a contract, please? And that is not for the people who are from a task-based culture, that is not a sign of mistrust if you ask for a contract. It's just a way people feel comfortable that let's put it in paper. So later, if some issue arises, we can look at what did we actually say and how are we going to do this. On the other side, the relationship-based side, this is frequently felt like a little bit, why don't you trust me? If there's a conflict, we will work it out. As long as we will be able to discuss it and we'll be able to work it out. It's not necessary to put it on paper. So those are just two different ways of building trust. Now, these are some of the scores on this dimension. So you see actually a huge difference here between the Netherlands and Ghana. When we talk of the GNBCC, where especially Ghanaian and Dutch people are working together. I realize Belgium is not there. I'm sorry. I should look it up. Somebody, so a bit more in between, I would say. And so USA, Netherlands as well, Denmark, Germany, very task-oriented. That is how the people work. That's how they build trust among each other and themselves as well. And then most African countries, more on the relation oriented way of building trust, together with all kinds of other countries as well. China is there as well. Spain, France, a little bit in the middle. Great Britain also a bit more towards the middle. So these are averages, like I said. A few, and this, like I said, this is just the shorelines. This is just the black and white, or between two main differences. Still, of course, in different countries and within different countries, you still have a lot of nuances as well. In India, you build trust if you have my back. If I know that, you will say positive things about me at the moment that it becomes difficult. In the USA, it's built on truth. Whether at this moment, well, there's a lot of mistrust at this moment, and there's not that much truth as well. They are really struggling at this moment. In Germany, it's about stability. It's about predictable. They really would like, things to be grounded in structures and predictability. And then if you do that for them, they will trust you. In China, it's the in-group, Guangxi, as they call it. So it's the connections that you have and the connections that you build in life. In Japan, well, if you are good at karaoke and you drink sake with them, which is the Japanese wine, and late at night, and they are in the karaoke bar, and if you really, show who you are, it is really a trust builder. And there's many people who do business in Japan. That's how they do it. In the Netherlands, you don't need to, drink wine. You have coffee. that's enough. That's okay. And it's not necessary to eat either if you have coffee with each other. And what the Netherlands really, really likes is complete openness. You really, also when you negotiate with the Dutch, they are used to putting their cards on the table. And they actually also prefer you to put your cards on the table. And then together you're going to look for win-win situations. They don't usually, well, it's different in different situations, but they try to find a win-win situation. And if you're not all the way honest to them, or you don't tell the whole truth, let's say, and they find out later, their trust goes down. It really goes down. So be open. That is how they really like to develop trust. In Asia, you eat together. West Africa, I think it's in group as well. And one thing which is really like the oil in trust building in like Ghana as well, Nigeria as well, and other countries in West Africa. If you are able to make a little joke, also for instance when you're negotiating, if you make a little joke, if you're able to, some people dance a little, or maybe they make some music. Humor really is like the oil. And in many other countries, they find this very difficult because their culture is far more serious. Huh? And then if you use humor, they may think, is this person really professional? While in West Africa, it really works that way, which I think is a beautiful thing, by the way. And then both in Asia and Africa, this was a sentence by one of my colleagues the other day, and I thought that's really how it is. Favors are your currency. I do something for you, then, the relationship is being built. I start the trust starts to being built, and then we can do business together. And then maybe you do something for me, and then I do something for you again. It's like favors. Favors is the currency that between individuals, between people, between groups, sometimes even, but it's one person doing something for the other, which is really building trust that way. Okay, one moment of reflection. What do you think? What do you need to gain trust in somebody? How did you build trust recently with somebody or with a team that you work with? Please go back 2 minutes, how that worked for you. What did you do? And once you have an example in your mind, ask yourself, is it more task or is it more relationship oriented? So you do have a chance to, get to know yourself a little bit.
Okay, Alette, I would interrupt briefly.
Yes?
Yes, we're also really curious to see what you think, and I'm talking to the audience here. So kindly feel free to use the chat, put your comments in there, bring your questions in. We really want to see how this is also going for you. And we're also curious about your experiences in working with mixed cultures. So please make use of the chat box. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful. Yeah, please do. Thank you. And let me then also continue. I see I'm a bit behind, but and I still would like to do the other two. So I go quickly to the next. Okay, say something about communication. The shorelines again. Now, this is a person from China, and he was living, or she was living, I have to say, it's a woman, in Germany. And she made all kinds of little drawings of the differences she noticed between Germany and China. And this is true for the Netherlands, for Ghana, for different African countries or other Asian countries as well. The communication on the left is a bit how the Germans did it, but all the Dutch also do it. They call it low context communication. And it's very direct. It's you say it as it is, let's say. Even the harsh truth needs to be told in their mind. Then on the other side, they call it high context communication. The lady was drawing it for China, and I think to a large extent it's also more true for most people on the African continent. People try to wrap their messages up a little bit, or they think, no, you cannot just give the harsh truth to somebody. That's it's not professional, but it's not kind either. So they prefer not to give a negative message. So they try to to wrap it up a little bit nicely. Now, this is really related to this other dimension, or it's actually very related to each other, on collectivism and individualism. And in individualist countries, it doesn't mean they are egotistic. It just means that Rama, please. Yes, thank you. It means that, you know, in individualist countries, you're supposed to take care of the family that you come from, so your parents and your siblings, and the family that you create, so your children and your partner. And other people, other parts of the family are around for birthday parties or maybe Christmas, but you're not really responsible for them. Now, in the collectivist side, you actually are born into bigger groups of you know, extended family, and you are loyal to the bigger group, and also they will take care of you. So if the son of your nephew is asking for some extra finances for health or education, you know, they can also come to you with that question. So it's more collectivist. And because you're part of those bigger group of people and the community, let's say, that means you have to maintain the relationships between those people, and you communicate a bit more, well, elegantly, or a bit more high context, a bit more indirect. These are some of the scores. We see indeed the Netherlands very much on the individualist side, Ghana on the collectivist side, many countries in between. It has, like I said, it has a strong influence on communication. So if you have a bad news conversation, you have to say something to somebody which is, you know, a bit of a negative message. It can be feedback, negative feedback, or it can be, you know, you're the boss and you need to tell somebody that the person will have to go to another position, or, you know, anything that is not going to be very pleasant for the person who's listening. Now, in the Netherlands, we learn also, for instance, a doctor has to give the diagnosis to somebody who's sick. We learn that we have to give the diagnosis in this case, or the bad news, immediately. We start in the middle. And then we go round and round, and, you know, we accommodate the emotion that may come with it, or we start talking about treatment, or we start talking about the consequences, but we start in the middle. Generally speaking, people from collectivist societies think that as actually it's too harsh to start in the middle. You don't do that. You don't slap people in the face like that. In the Netherlands, we love it that way, because if somebody starts, you know, giving a vague message, we think like, okay, tell me how it is. You know, complete openness. We want to hear it. We start to get agitated that the news is not coming. But people from collectivist societies, they say, no, 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 you have to start around and around and around until you know, in that moment, you give the other person the time to actually understand the message slowly, and not just bam, like that. So the whole communication is the other way around. You see what I mean? We circle in different ways that way. So this is an example, and it can come from Ghana as well. But I just had, you know, an image of a Chinese in this case. But I think in many African countries, it's also more the indirect speech. So two colleagues, one Dutch, one Chinese, they do not agree on something. Now the Dutch, he shows that he has another opinion. He thinks that's professional behavior. Huh? But the Chinese, he doesn't. He smiles, although they know that they have a different opinion. Now the goal of the Dutch is, I have to show him what my thoughts are, because that way, we can exchange ideas and get further. But the goal of the Chinese in this moment is, I would like to keep the harmony between us. I don't want to break this relationship. That's the main goal. Of course, there's also, we can talk about what the difference of opinion of us is, but we have to go round and round first. We just don't do it like that, because it may be dangerous for our relationship. So what does the Dutch think of the Chinese at this moment? He thinks, he doesn't understand. Or maybe he thinks he's not honest. Or maybe he thinks he's not capable. That's the interpretation, if he's not very cultural competent. And what does the Chinese think? He thinks, this person, he can't control himself. Look at him talk like that. He's just talking anyhow. He doesn't respect me. I can't trust him. And he retreats. This is frequently what can happen. Although both they have the best of intentions, but still, it can break. And that's really too bad. And actually, it's a sad thing. We have to become cultural competent so we understand each other this way. Now, important is that the Dutch really thinks, I respect you by talking my truth, by telling you what I really think. That is how I show my respect. If a Dutch doesn't tell you the whole truth, he really has the feeling at that moment like he doesn't take you for a fool or something. So that's how the Dutch will give his respect. By the Chinese, he said, no, I respect you by taking care of our relationship. So they come from different sides and they need to, build a bridge in between those different shorelines. So working in more individualist cultures, if you are from a collectivist culture and you're working in more individualist cultures, try to be more specific in communication. Because, for instance, if you say something this way with high context, a Dutch or a German or an American may not understand you. They're so used to, the other person being very straight. So they just don't get your hints. Don't take things personally. It's not when people from more direct cultures, they give you their truth, they're actually respecting you by giving you their truth. It's not that they want to attack you personally. That's not at all their intention, at least. And focus on task. Then if you are from a more individualist culture and you're working with collectivist culture, wrap your messages a little bit. Don't slap people in the face. Try to be a bit more, use context to give your message. Try to read in between the lines, because communication is not only about saying something, it's also about listening. And listen well. And focus on relationship building. Okay, let me go here. One more, and then we see if we have some questions. This one also I'd like to talk to you. So far, we've seen really differences between, for instance, some European countries or USA on the one hand, and more African countries on the other hand. But there's also, of course, inside the African continent, there's huge differences, and you know better than me. One of them is this one. That's why I also wanted to include it shortly. And of course, there's more of them, by the way. But again, we have 1.5 hours, and culture is a complex thing. So the difference between tender cultures and tough cultures. Now, in tender cultures, you see it in the images, there's more attention for care, for quality of life. People like to do their best. They want to contribute to the team or to the organization. That's what motivates them to work hard. They want to contribute. On the other side, it's not so much about care and quality of life. The tough cultures, it's about results and achievement and success. And they don't want to do their best. They want to be the best. They want to win. And they are motivated to really put that achievement on the map. And then they can tell their boss, look at me. This is what I've achieved. This is the goal that I really was able to get to a good ending. And then their cooperation and consensus. People, everybody wants to contribute. Everybody wants to be together, cooperate, and see whether we can get a decision where everybody, is able to live with that decision. It's consensus building. And it may take a long time. Their meetings are usually longer. And on the tough side, it's about competition and about assertiveness and about decisiveness as well. So I wonder what you think where Ghana is on this one. Is it more tender or is it more tough? And then if you look at the difference between, for instance, Ghana and Nigeria, which one is tougher? Is it Nigeria or is it Ghana? And I think most of you by now will be able to see that, to understand it. The Netherlands is really on the tender side here. We have endless meeting. I don't know whether you've been able to work with the Dutch, but we always meet and we sit there and everybody is talking and everybody is contributing. And before we have consensus, it takes forever. People from other countries really get very impatient with us. Sweden is even more tender. So it's really Scandinavia on the left. And other, Chile, Thailand, there's other countries in the world also who are on the left, by the way. It's not only Scandinavia. And then we see that Ghana is a bit more on the tender side as well. Africa is a bit in the middle, but still there is really internal differences. And if you look at Ghana and you look at Nigeria, you will probably recognize, this assertiveness. Nigerians are more loud, let's say, than Ghanaians. Same is true for Kenya when you compare it to Tanzania, for instance. China on the competitive side as well as Anglo-Saxon, so USA, Germany, UK is also so there. Japan, very tough culture, very result-oriented. People work and work and work forever, until the drop actually. So very much result-oriented and on that side. Let's see. Few ones, people want to participate, contribute, long meetings. People work in order to live. On the other side, people live in order to work. And they call this the motivation cultural difference. Because motivation, if you want to motivate your people in an organization, it comes from a different source. Contribution, pleasant work environment, or promotion, career, working for a prestigious person. So this is a Dutch decision-making meeting. Everybody wants to contribute, and in the end, it will be hard to really get one consensus. So for now, similarities unite us. We are all human beings. We all have so many things in common. At the same time, if you look at the differences, it makes us grow. It makes us learn from each other, complement each other. And that is what I wanted to share with you.
Thank you very much, Alette. This has really been insightful. I'm sure most of us would have our individual experiences when it comes to dealing with other cultures. But I
Sure.
really like that you also mentioned that knowing these things makes us, of course, you'd be able to understand better, but then you're also able to strategize and see how to deal with certain people in certain contexts. So thank you so much for sharing. We have some questions. I'll go through that, and then please, for the audience, please don't hold back. Any questions at all, Alette is here to answer it to the best of her ability. So please make sure you put your questions in the chat box. Okay, Benjamin is asking for practical tips on how you can rebuild trust once it's broken across cultural lines, especially when the offense was unintentional or rooted in cultural ignorance.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that depends, of course, who the person is that, this breach of trust or this break of the relationship has taken place. But indeed, at the moment that, something happens, and I've also experienced it, when I worked in different countries, and also in Ghana, for instance, that it's completely unintentional. I had said something far too direct to somebody. It wasn't meant to be painful for the other person at all. In the Netherlands, we would be able to say such a thing, but then, and it was very hard to restore again because she had taken it personally. Wow, I think it was a cultural thing and not a personal thing. So how to restore? I don't know. I've become very good in saying sorry, and sometimes that helps, and sometimes it doesn't. Uh, it's for every person. I think it's good to build um, cultural competence, so the other person also understands, where you come from. But sometimes what my experience was in Ghana, and please, you all know this better, but my experience was that uh, sometimes maybe you can say sorry, but you don't need to go there that much because people will feel uncomfortable being reminded of it all the time. And remember, favors is your currency. So do favors. Try to do something for the other person, or try to really listen, like, what does this person need from me, or what makes this person happy? Build on the relationship, really. That is, if indeed, I don't know whether I'm now interpreting that the other person is more collectivist or maybe Ghanaian, I don't know. Um, but try to restore it that way. I hope that helps.
Ben, I hope that answered your question. So try to say sorry and know that do favors when
Mhm.
you have to. Okay, so this question was on the form. This is from Susan, who is a Dutch. She's Dutch, but is now living in Ghana. And
Mhm.
the question, so I'm reading. My focus is on errors we can make even though we've been in Ghana for a long time. What are what are the really subtle differences in culture, and how do you overcome those to build trusts?
What are the common?
The really subtle differences.
Yeah, the subtle differences, indeed. That is, it's difficult because I mean, what I've done now is really give the broad outlines there. Like I said, we have 1.5 hours, and in every situation, it actually gets its real form a little bit differently. The main thing I can say is, um, and that can be also, among the individual in front of you, or the group, or the team, or the whatever. The main thing I can say is move slowly. Don't go too fast. And then you will, and if you, for instance, have to give a message which may not fall very well, go very much round it, and 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 stop at the moment that you feel like, oh gosh, wait, either the message has been understood, because in the Netherlands, then we continue because we want to make sure that they really understood, you know, and we say very negative things because in our culture, that's what we like. But so move very slowly and very, cautiously, and say nice things. To me, it's a dance. It's a diplomatic. It's a beautiful way of talking amongst themselves. But it's for if you are not used to it, like myself, from you, it's a hard lesson. It's not easy. So for the Ghanaians, I would like to say, be easy on us. We just we, bear with us, maybe. Yeah, we are not used to it. We are not used to it. And nuances, there's so many nuances. It's different per person. I won't be able to say it all. And of course, I mean, if you have to give feedback, for instance, always do it in private. Don't do it where other people are present. If you if you, I don't know, if you are a team leader, go to your people before the meeting to ask them whether they have ideas or, uh, and but don't ask them during the meeting, because then they may not say much. Go to your people before the meeting and after the meeting. What did they actually think? you know so the decision making in the Netherlands is taking place in the meeting, but in collectivist societies it is more outside the meeting. And it's not only collectivist societies. At this moment, the NATO is here in The Hague, and they have a meeting of 3 hours only, but uh, the hallways, there's so much going on. So it's, of course, it's taking place everywhere, but it's also in Ghana. That's how it is. One question, maybe let me, was also in the about. Let me see if I can. It was also an interesting question, although it's a bit. Oh, oh. No, I can't see it now.
I'm actually on there now, so I can read
Okay.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, okay. So let me know if there's the question you're looking for. What strategies can leaders employ to effectively navigate and leverage cultural differences within their teams?
Yes. Well, what you're actually then talking about is about diversity management. How do you manage this diversity? And it's a separate webinar, I would say, or a separate training even. But of course, the first one is build cultural competence, so people are able to interpret the behavior of themselves, but also of the other, a bit differently. and they see that, people don't mean it badly. They just, have learned to behave a bit differently. And so building cultural competence, and then when when you have a team, they can also actually discuss it. Sometimes we have a training, we give those differences, we talk about the shorelines, let's say, and then we ask the team to discuss with themselves. So how would you want it? What are your operating procedures? What are you going to choose? So they themselves then start building their own little culture, which is very good, of course. But it doesn't go by itself. And you don't manage cultural differences by letting it go. You need to manage it. You need to be there. And there's a few rules of thumb. For instance, one is that if there's a conflict or a difference of meaning, you solve it immediately. Don't let it sit. And especially interculturally, it can really, go bad quickly. So be very quick. That's diversity management. Another one is always keep the output, the goal in mind when you take decisions on how to do things. Go towards your goal. Another one is don't create fault lines. Fault lines is when two characteristics fall together. So, for instance, all the women who are also from Ghana are going to do this task, and then all the men who are coming from Germany are going to do that task. So you really create two groups. No, mix people. Don't. When you see fault lines are coming, because automatically people go to their group, right? That's human behavior. We all do that. So if you see that it's becoming a bit too much, try to mix people immediately. So those are all little rules of thumb of diversity management, which may help.
Yeah. Okay, so on that topic, this question is, what is the most common mistake professionals make? So as per your experience, what would you say is the most common mistakes professionals make when collaborating across cultures? And what are some strategies that we can explore to avoid it?
Maybe one of the most common mistakes is that you automatically assume that the other person thinks the same way as you do. It's so automatic. To you, it's so unconscious. So when somebody is doing something which, um, you don't approve of it, you don't like it, then we think it is the person, it's the personality that you don't like. But very frequently, it may be a cultural thing underneath. So don't assume the other person is like you, or don't assume that it's actually, Jonathan or Elikem who is behaving strangely. It may be a cultural underneath. And I think the main, when I was, the main thing is about communication. This straightness, and that's what I have to say I stumbled upon a few times, that indeed I was too direct, and people took it personally. And then on the other hand, maybe people had said something to me and I just didn't hear it. But then I can only speak for myself. Yeah, but don't make assumptions. Try to just look underneath the waterline a little bit. Or ask, why did you do that? And tell them, and be straight. If you are from Ghana, for instance, and you're working with the Dutch, please speak up. Tell them what you think. I mean, they will probably like it more than you. Don't be too easy on them. I think. But do have a conversation and do ask as well. Yeah, yeah. Try to speak up.
Thanks. Rima is interested in your experiences. So she's asking, are there any cultural practices or attitudes that cut across, respective of where someone comes from? And do you have any interesting experiences to share?
I'm not sure whether I understand independent on where somebody comes from. I'm not sure about that one.
So she's asking, and Rima, let me know if I'm not getting it right, but she's asking whether there are some practices that, regardless of where someone comes from, cuts across. So whether you're Dutch or you're Ghanaian, are there any things you've experienced that, regardless of where we come from? Yeah.
Well, I'm here to talk about the cultural differences. So of course, we're all human beings, for one. We're all human beings, and indeed, being interested in the other person and that one is really helpful. One of my experience, but then again, that is cultural. I think when I was in Ghana, and I was one of the mistakes I made, and we all make it. We all do things a bit differently. But one of the things that I did, which was not going down well, was I wanted to contribute to the meeting. I always wanted to contribute, and I have ideas, and I want to talk here. I wanted to talk, and blah, blah, blah. But I had no idea at that moment that I was very threatening to the team leader, because I was always, and I thought I was contributing. I thought I was doing something good. And only later and I got into tension. It became tense, actually. And only later I realized, I should have gone to the team leader before the meeting, so the person can think about my ideas, take the decisions, and then bring it back to the meeting instead of all the time going into a discussion during the meeting. I was really too much in his face, actually. That's one of my experiences that I really recall very well. Yeah. 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 Yeah, you do things, you do your best, and we all do our best. Um, and of course, at the same time, away from cultural differences, indeed, we're all human beings. It's all nice to be kind to each other. It's nice to, if you don't understand something, don't interpret immediately. Ask, start maybe a conversation. Sometimes also don't start the conversation and be a bit laid back, move slowly and observe. Don't go too fast.
All right. There's a question from Hilda. She says, given your knowledge of cultural differences between Ghana and the Netherlands, could you propose a list of 5 to 10 questions that we answer in a collective session to highlight the differences and get to understand each other's cultures better?
We have a questionnaire, separate questionnaire. It's not 5 though. So, but yeah, I can make a list, and indeed, very frequently you would. But then again, in Hofstede says you can only measure culture in huge groups, only in really bulk groups. Then you can see these averages. But in smaller groups, people can be so different, like we saw in the beginning. But still, you may be able to really see indeed those differences, but don't expect it can also be different. Sometimes you don't see it. You only see it when you're interviewing, like 2,000 people per country, let's say, or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, if I may add, maybe hello, Alette, and thank you very much for this. In fact, just to highlight my interest, I see it in general. I mean, whether you talk about cultural differences, of course, it's always an element, but you also have interpersonality differences. It could be a nice team building thing to do, to have the right questions where you know, oh, I look at it this way and you look at it that way. It can just spark some conversation, and I see it more as not as an analysis tool, but more as something to spark a conversation in a group,
Sure.
you know, with colleagues or with friends, or, you know, if you feel maybe there is some tension, okay, you know, let's just put this on the table, which is maybe more the Dutch way of doing, and talk about it. And I just see it as a way of maybe organizing a small team building or something that can just make sure that we understand each other very well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, of course. And yeah, we do have those. And especially, yeah, during training, usually I also have quiz question, for instance, and very often it sparks lots of discussion as well. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, you too.
Okay, the last question. Mondi is asking, do you think trust can be completely achieved across cultures?
Yes, I think so, although it will always need some extra management or effort. It doesn't come by itself. Before you know it, because it's so unconscious, you slip back into your own way of behavior, and so it is definitely possible. Even partners, I mean, man and wife marriages. And I know quite some mixed marriage here in the Netherlands as well, and also with people from the African continent. And it does continue to need a bit of an effort. And of course, sometimes no. I mean, it can be a perfect day and everything is perfect, but there may be moments that again, you know, and also between just colleagues or whatever, that you do need to take the extra mile, to take the extra step. Like, wait a minute, this person is coming from, you know, this way of doing things. So let me just interpret it a bit differently. So it may still always need a bit of extra thinking, an extra layer, an extra small effort. Yeah, but it's definitely possible. I think so. Yeah. I think you're muted, Tracy.
Yes, hi. Kojo is asking practical ways to rebuild trust when it's unintentionally broken. I think this is very similar to Ben's
Benjamin.
question. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you mentioned, of course, it's individual, it's specific
Yeah.
to the individual.
Well, let me add to what I said when Benjamin posed the question. I was at that moment thinking that, you know, if you are the visitor in Ghana and you've, you know, broken a relationship with somebody from Ghana, I was talking about, you know, saying sorry, but don't go back there too often because it makes people feel uncomfortable, and also do the favors and try to restore it in another way. That's one. If it's the other way around, if it's with the Dutch, for instance, what the Dutch would like to see probably is the Dutch really would like indeed the excuses, the sorry I made a mistake, even if you don't have the feeling you made a mistake. If you show them, hey, I'm willing to also, you know, that's one, and two, also the complete openness. Go talk to the person, say, wow, this really didn't go well, and this is what I meant, this was my intention, I see it didn't go down well. You know, it's the complete openness that will help you on that side. Well, if it's a Ghanaian, no, better not, go round it. Don't go there again. Don't, people will not like it. But so it's the opposite. You see what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Alette. We've exhausted all our questions.
And again, I'm just saying this a bit black and white, and it depends on the individual as well, of course.
Yeah.
But so you have to feel your way through. But try to, yeah, this information, averagely most people here like this and most people there like that. So do take that along in your strategy, in your strategic thinking, let's say. Yeah.
Yeah, so I hope our questions have been answered, and I hope this has given us more understanding into why certain things happened the way they did. And like Alette was saying, do well to observe first, try to be open as much as possible, and always communicate. So thank you all so much for coming. Alette, if you don't have any final words, I would officially close us off. I want to say thank you very much for facilitating the session, for sharing your expertise with us. And for everyone who has joined us, thank you for spending 1.5 hours with us. And I hope the session has been informative. We would upload this on GNBC's YouTube page, so it's available to you to always go back and then review and then see what you're missing. Yes, and in the meantime, please do well to follow GNBCC on all our social media handles. We'll put that in the chat shortly. And do well to stay in touch. If you're interested to be a GNBC member, please don't hesitate. Get in touch with us. And Alette is a GNBC member. So if you have more cultural questions, then you can meet her there and then ask them. So yes, thank you very much, Alette. And to our audience, thank you all for joining. I wish you a good rest of your day. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you as well. Thank you all.